Hey guys, it's Jacob with the Mr. Addiction podcast, where we try to give the experience of addiction through people who have lived it. And Megan's joining me today. She's my friend from Minnesota, and I'm glad I'm not in Minnesota because it is unbelievably cold there. So we're glad to have her, and we'll just roll right into the first question. Megan, what would be, if you could say, how has addiction affected your life? What's been your experience with it?
Sure. Let's see. So my experience with addiction, it started immediately when I started drinking when I was 15. I used it as a coping mechanism because I had social anxiety. I had low self-esteem. So right away, I was using that as a crutch to make me feel what I thought was normal. I knew immediately that how alcohol was making me feel was probably not how it was making others feel. I wanted to drink all the time, but I managed, mostly because I was underage and didn't have access to it, and I had school and sports. I didn't have time to really go into it. So that's why my actual everyday drinking addiction had not started in high school. But once it got to college, it was condoned to be blackout drunk and partying every night. So I thrived. So how it affected me in college was I was constantly hiding who I was behind alcohol. I just wanted to appear like everyone around me. So I held a lot in. Meanwhile, I was falling behind. I was barely hanging on to classes. I was playing a sport in college that I ended up quitting after my third year because I said I wanted to focus on school when really I wanted to just be drinking more. It caused me to almost flunk, get kicked out of college because I plagiarized a paper. I don't even know if anyone knows that. But they gave me a break and I could take the class again, and I passed it. It was constantly a balancing act, as well as hiding everything I was doing from everyone I loved. So none of my relationships were genuine. I was not the person I portrayed. My stress and anxiety were through the roof because it was hard to juggle all of these lives. After college, so I was in a relationship through college, and then my year after college, we moved to a smaller town. We both got jobs in southern Minnesota. Good jobs. I was still drinking all the time. And my thing was with my jobs is I would be drunk at work or drink hungover or just not out of it or not with it at all. And then I would get paranoid. I would quit before I could get fired. So I ended up quitting my job. I stayed at home then pretending to find a job, and I was drinking all the time. So I was not there for my partner. I was not there for my family. I couldn't be because I was under the influence. And I knew I needed help. I didn't know anyone that was in recovery or had ever been to treatment. No one in my family, friends, community had ever gone to rehab. And then I started getting sick. So I started getting sick with liver failure, like cirrhosis and pancreatitis. And that completely took over my life then. So with the addiction, I ended up having liver failure and needing a transplant. What I didn't know at the time was that I also had I have an underlying blood disease where my body holds on to iron. I also have a couple predispositions for liver issues, and I have a genetic mutation for leukemia. So I don't have leukemia, but I have enough of it that I could have it. So finding all of that out throughout this, so my first time I went to treatment was after I got sick at first, and I was completely blindsided because it was a big book treatment. Again, I didn't know anyone in treatment or who had ever been. I got there the first day. They asked me what a big book was, and I said, how big? Like, I had no idea what the big book was. I went through that treatment, and I felt like I was like forced to do a fourth step there. It just, none of it clicked. I didn't, like, my world was blown at that point. I couldn't accept that this was going to be my life, that alcohol, like not drinking, meant not having friends. It meant being bored. It meant being a loser. It meant being a failure. So I did not want to admit, and I didn't want people to know what I was going through. So again, that added on the hiding and the pressure, and it's lonely, basically.
Yeah.
So I went through yeah.
Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I've been through 5 treatments. This last one has been a little different. And what I've realized with this last one is that, like, I wish I would have asked for help sooner. I wish I would have called someone every time that I relapsed. I wish I would have tried everything, like antidepressants, whether they worked or not. Just give it a full chance, because it has changed my life. I actually put 100% into AA, whether I believed in it or not at the time, and it's been a huge support system for me in this last year. Those are the people I hang out with. Those are the people I can talk to. I just basically gave up trying to control what people thought of me and my addiction, and I focused on myself and how I felt, and I did the things that people were telling me to do because they did it and they felt better. And they had been telling me that for years and years. It was just the point that I realized I really haven't been trying at all the last 7 years, because I was not willing to try, like, go to the doctor. I wasn't willing to go to AA. I wasn't willing to go to support groups that aren't in AA or anything. I had a very supportive family and everything. They didn't understand addiction at all, obviously. But they knew that I had changed, and they just wanted me to be the person, or be, like, happy with myself, which I'm very, very thankful and grateful for, because I know a lot of people don't have that. But if you don't have that, I guess, I've also found that within, like, my sober friends and my sober community. I do have friends that aren't sober, but I've reached out to them and explained, like, I've told them what was going on with me. And so they kind of understand a little bit, as much as they can, they're willing to understand. Right now, addiction has changed for me and my family, just because I survived my health crisis. I got a liver transplant. After my liver transplant, it was rejected by my body. The other conditions and blood disease and such that I had, in addition to alcohol, made every drink that I had before that, it was like having one drink was like having 3 drinks to my body. So that's why I declined so quickly. But at the same time, I was still drinking a ton. Like, I think if it would have been drink for drink, I still would have ended up with cirrhosis and everything. Anyways, back to my transplant. I had rejection. I had heart failure. I got diabetes. With my blood disease, I had bone marrow failure. I had to do chemotherapy. I had to wear a vest with, like, the shock pads on it in case I went into cardiac arrest. I had surgeries on my pancreas for collapsed tubing. I forget what it is. Biliary duct. That's what it is. Biliary duct. I had infections. I had some serious infections. Yeah, there are things, like, it's not just your liver. Your kidneys go. Right now, I was on 5 transplant lists at the most. Right now, I'm on 2. I'm on kidney, pancreas. But I'm functioning pretty well. If you give it 100%, you will get what you want out of it. But if you, just It doesn't have to take years and years. It really doesn't have to. And that's something that I wish I realized earlier, but everyone has their own timing. So, do you want me to elaborate on anything?
Well, I mean, I just, I think obviously your story, I like your story. I don't like that happened to you, but I like your story because it really shines a flashlight on, some of the health issues that come with it, which is when you're young, a lot of people don't talk about that. And when you do it, and then you said you started at around 15. Because you said that, and because of all the suffering that you've endured through addiction, what would you say to maybe younger people who don't take it serious, or parents who aren't watching out, for addiction creeping in on their kids and things like that? What kind of warning would you have for them?
I would say if you are using anything to escape your life, you probably need to explore getting help or you don't necessarily have to go to treatment. I know people that haven't gone to treatment. I needed that because I needed someone else to take control for a while. I needed to be taken out of my life and what was around me at the time because it was not healthy, and I needed to totally recenter and refocus. And the unfortunate part of that is that I didn't take it I got that refocused and recentered and everything, but then afterwards I just did whatever I wanted afterwards instead of sticking with everything that I had learned and all the tools that they had given me. I just thought that it was just going to work, and I didn't really have to work hard at it, but that's not the case. For parents and their kids, if they're not really concerned about, that they think they have that same idea I did, that kids are just partying when they're young, I would just pay attention to, if they're still accomplishing the things that they always accomplish, if they're still, if they have a part-time job, if they're still going to work, if they are sleeping until 2 in the afternoon. And I understand that can be explained by other things, but if there is I don't know, substance use and stuff like that associated with it, it's a red flag for sure. And why not address it immediately rather than when it gets to the point where you're going in the hospital like I was. Just having open communication is really important. It's tough. It would be interesting is if you had my parents on here or something.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I'd love to do
what
that.
They went through, and I can talk to them about that. But it's actually crazy to even think that I went through all of that just for alcohol. If you're using because you're escaping your life, you can change things in your life so that you don't need to be hungover and out of it and stuff like that. So why not just nip that right away and then an ultimate successful, fulfilling life that you don't have to escape from.
Right. It's as you know, it's not taken serious for a while, but it's life and death, and I try
absolutely is life and death.
Yeah, and I try to tell myself that it's that serious in some of the smaller decisions that I make. But I think too that one of the problems is when you're younger or when you're in addiction, right, is there's a hatred of the consequences. There's a love for it. And that
right.
Love blinds you from what anyone's saying at the time. So I'm really thankful that God, even through all those things, got you to a place to where, like you said, you wanted to learn and listen. Because I just think that's a miracle, for people who struggle with drugs. Because a lot of people never get help.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, I'm done. You go ahead.
Also, going through all of the health things associated with my drinking and liver, I got through that, with just going to God. And I've never been, a super God person until that, because But when I was getting like heart failure, infection, rejection, surgeries, like all of that stuff, it was like every 2 weeks I got that bad news. And I don't know. I just wasn't worried. I have no explanation for it. But at the same time, just because like you haven't had consequences or people you know haven't had consequences, when I was in the hospital, it was like every 2 weeks there was an issue that I couldn't comprehend. Like I would have never, I'm an overthinker, but there's things that you have never heard of, never experienced, never been through that can happen to you that you have you can't even imagine or think of. They're not even anything you've ever heard of. Like I woke up one day after a surgery and my face was swollen shut because I had an allergic reaction. Or like when I got my heart failure, I went to the ER because I could not breathe for like 2 days. I was like suffocating. I didn't sleep because I had to consciously breathe. So just because it hasn't happened to you or haven't heard about it, like there are so many things that could go wrong. Why even like allow those to be options would be my question for people that are being risky out there.
Right, and that's really one of the goals of this whole podcast and things is just talking to people like you and others, just, because I think people need to hear the gravity of it and the reality of it. And otherwise, it is just a game, and
yeah,
it's only cool
it got real for me.
Yeah.
It got real the second time I had heart failure because it happened so quick, and I got evaluated for a heart transplant in like 2 days, and usually it takes, I don't even know how many months, and it was to the point where I had palliative, however you want to pronounce it, palliative care. That's where they plan end of life stages. So I was doing my the paperwork, my healthcare directive, which is like when to pull the plug on me, and I was looking at hospice centers because they weren't sure what was going to happen.
That's intense. That's I can't imagine,
So this was all during COVID too, so I was only allowed to have one person with me sometimes. A lot of it, I was by myself a lot. But I remember, like, I have the letters that I wrote my siblings, like, in case I died.
Yeah, so, man, it just must really hit home to you. The seriousness of
it.
Like we were talking about. Well, I really only have one more question.
Sure.
I don't think you should have to think too hard about this, but would you say that I'm probably the coolest Southern person that you guys met in Minnesota?
Absolutely.
Yeah. No, well, I couldn't.
Even though you laughed.
I know. I couldn't take it.
Back anytime.
I will openly admit that I'm a coward when it comes to cold weather. So
I know.
It defeated me. But yeah, I just really appreciate your time and just thank you so much for sharing